Hi everyone, welcome to the Sewing Studio. It's Jeanette here and I'm just going to show you this little project we've been doing for a little while, and I've been holding back from finishing it because I thought this would be a good opportunity to show you how to add a hanging sleeve. Now I've got mine here made here, but if I just sort of flip this original one over, you can sort of see on the back here I've just got the little hanging sleeve that a pole can go into. And when I'm doing it, before I've finished it, I stitch them into the binding. So I thought it might be a useful little technique to show you. So we're going to do that here today. So let's just fold that one up and put it out the way. And then I can just focus on this one. Now I've got a piece of fabric here that I've already started. I've double hemmed it, and that's just where you just turn in, and I'll show you it. Turn in one edge and then turn it in again and stitch it down. And I've cut this, so it's going to end up about 1 inch smaller than the size of your quilt. So for this one, by the time I've come that in, like I say, I should have 1 inch that side and 1 inch that side. Now, as I started to say, for this one, I didn't quite have a piece that was long enough. I was using sort of leftover bits. So if I sort of turn that over, you can see I've actually put a seam in it there, and that's absolutely fine. That will be strong enough. Now, the other thing to say with this as well is this is just a small little wall hanging. So I'm just doing a hanging sleeve that's going to finish at 3 inches. Now, most places they'll ask, or if you're putting your quilt into an exhibition or a quilt show, they'll ask for a 4-inch sleeve. So just sort of bear that in mind, that because this is a little wall hanging, I thought a 4-inch sleeve is going to be too big, and this is just going to be me. It's not going anywhere. Actually, it's going to live here. It's not really going anywhere. So I've done this, so it's going to finish at 3. So I've cut this piece of fabric. It started off about the same width, because by the time we sort of double fold in, we're going to lose the sort of inch, and you want to, like say, at least have 1 inch either side-ish. And 7.5 inches tall. If you're doing a 4-inch one, it needs to be 8.5. And you'll see I've got a crease in there already. I'll tell you what that's all about. But first of all, I'm going to make the other side of the double hem just to finish off that edge. So we're going to take that to the iron. So here, I'm just going to sort of eyeball sort of a decent sort of, I don't know, that's probably about 1/2 inch. And then we're going to fold it again. Now, if you want to measure that more precisely, you can. I tend to sort of do things by eye. And now I'm going to take that to the machine and just stitch along that edge. Now, once I've got the 2 ends done, I'm just going to fold it like that. So it's got about 1/2 inch between that edge, and that's where that seam comes in. I'm just going to give that a press. And that's going to help us a bit later on. Now I'm ready to put it on. Now I've left a pin in the back of this to indicate which I want to be the top. So I'm going to just flip that over. Remove that pin, and then the side where we've got the gap, that's the bit that's going to go up against that raw edge. And then this other side we're going to bring that right up so those 2 raw edges meet. And what that gives us is a bit of excess fabric here, so that when you have the pole, that will be taken up by the pole rather than the pole pushing through and coming out onto the front of your quilt. So by just giving ourselves that 1/2 inch, it's just giving us a gap. So I'm lining up those raw edges. I'm just going to pin, and then I'm just going to check that I'm happy. No, that needs to come over a little bit more. And I do that. I mean, if you want to measure, you can. I'm a by eye sort of girl. And I'm going to do that one. Just making sure if you've got clips, you could clip this. I'm just going to pin, bring it a bit closer to me. Might be a bit easier. Just making sure those edges are together. And then I'm going to take that to the machine. I'm just going to tack that in place about 1/8 inch away from the edge. And that's there ready for when I put the binding on. So let's just do that. So there we have it all tacked into place and we're ready. So let me just flip that over and let's just put our binding on. Now I'll just show you, if I start on this side here. Now I'm just going to run the binding round just to check that we haven't got, I think I've only got one seam in this binding. It was 2 strips that were 2.5 inches wide. Oh yeah, my seam's there, so I know that that's not going to be in the way. So let's just get those down and I'll see you just how that attaches when we do the binding. So let's take that to the machine. So I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam. Now I've got a 1/4 inch mark on this foot, so I know where to stop, but if you haven't, as you get to the end here, you can just draw your 1/4 inch mark. And I just reverse back. Some people sew off at a 45-degree angle. It's entirely up to you. And then we're going to just take that, fold it up, fold it back. Now I have done a binding tutorial with when we did the boat cushion. But basically you've got 3 match points. You've got the folded edge there, the raw edge there, and then also these 2 folded edges should sit on top of each other. And once we've got that, let's just put a pin there to hold it. We should have a nice mitre in that corner. So there we are, we've got our binding on. I normally at this point just check, I'll trim that out, pull those out. But you can see there, now I just made sure that that hanging sleeve was pinned down out the way, but you can see there now our binding is just going to come down and go over the top of that, and it finishes off all nice and neat. Now just the one last thing to do, because I've just pinned that down and out the way. Now if you remember, I just pulled that head off that flower head pin. Oh yeah, we got it back in. I'll keep doing that now though, won't I? Have to glue that one back in. Now if you remember that crease that we had earlier that we made in our fabric, we're just going to find that. And it's there. And we're just going to repin along that crease. And if you can see there, what that does, it gives us that bit of excess for the hanging sleeve. So I start with the 2 ends. And then I'll go all the way along. One more pin. That's the one that the head comes off of. I have to remember that later. And there, that will be our little excess. And then just the final thing we'll need to do is just hand stitch, just with a little slip stitch, just along the edge there to hold that piece of fabric down, because you don't want the pole going in behind between the quilt and the sleeve. You want it sort of going into the sleeve, and then along that edge, and then up the other side. And then your hanging sleeve will be done, all nice and neat and secured, stitched in under your binding. So I hope you found that a nice, useful little technique. Now I've got a bit of homework again to do, haven't I? Get this one finished, but it'll be nice to get that one done. That'll be a quick little job. And then we'll get it hung up here, so that'll be nice to see when I come into the shop. So thank you for joining us today, and I hope you'll join me again here next time in the Sewing Studio.